So I'm Jared. We are officially being recorded now, so I am
Cautious about what you
I,
want
I
to say,
I'm
Jared?
cautious. I was gonna say you
Yeah.
all the cool shit before this, and now you fucked it up. No, I'm just kidding. Drop all the f bombs early, but I'm co-founder of Rev Genius and also an audience engineering agency called Audience Stack, and I love finding and supporting awesome tools that make things easier. And this inbound to outbound, I call it audience engineering. It's a little more cohesive because technically it is coming inbound, but where does it start from? There are people that hear from you in communities like this, right? Like in webinars, on LinkedIn, in email, all of this. We're saying inbound to outbound. I'm going to make it much easier. How do you engineer your audiences to get them more engaged, to get them more in tune? How do you make sure your ICP is seeing this first? They're getting the right inbound. And then Sachin has operationalized this tremendously using tools like NREV, trying all the tools that you all heard of along the way and made it easier than ever. But I love having conversations like this with operators like you all to learn because we learn collectively. And what often comes out of these, Rev, Sasha, and have like a really good playbook to share so that you're gonna leave here with some learnings. But the hands being raised here and asking for things that maybe we know but we didn't realize were that important to you, right? Or things maybe we haven't thought of is how we get better too. So like if you have anything to say, questions to ask, whatever, there should be like a hand raise button below. Throw comments in the chat, all of that. Like, we want this to be collaborative, but like, even if you're quiet, you're going to learn something today. So thank you all for coming. And this is amped. I'm amped to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jared. Jared's absolutely right. We try to keep this webinar as interactive as possible. Just make sure that you're not unmuted at a time when a speaker is already speaking. Drop in any questions in the comments or raise your hands. We have a number of operators here. We can all make it very discussion oriented and have all our questions answered. Now, with that, I'll quickly start presenting my screen. This is just to guide us through the flow of the webinar. But yeah, so the problem we're looking at is how can we make LinkedIn a growth operating system, right? Not just treat it as a cold outbound sequencing platform, which of course has its own pros and cons. I'll get to some of the challenges that we are facing, and one thing, of course, is outbound saturation with tools like HeyReach, Valley, Lemlist. I mean, of course, all of us are automating outbound on LinkedIn, right? And that makes it go from a spectrum of LinkedIn more towards emails, right? So, which kind of also prevents people from really treating their inboxes in Gmail, in LinkedIn to be a very valuable inbox, a networking inbox. And now it's kind of becoming at that place where you start ignoring some of those messages because of these cold outbounds coming in. So that's definitely one of the problems that we're facing today. The second is, of course, the algorithmic suppression, which means that I think all of us creators here have noticed that, like, if we had like 2K, 3K, or 5K impressions before, now it's coming down to like 600 to 2000, maybe in that range. And it kind of gives us that motivation to do something a little more about it. Even if our reach does go to some point, how do we leverage that reach as much as possible to convert that to pipeline, right? And of course, then there's noise increasing. There's almost every topic, every industry has a lot to say about how they're using AI, how they're using existing tools or bunching them together with AI. And it's becoming incredibly difficult to stand out of that and create a place for yourself. Right? With these problems in mind, and as Jared also put it, like audience engineering or inbound led outbound is a very, very interesting way in which you can make your LinkedIn not just audience proof, as in you kind of engage with every single possible chance with an audience, but you also kind of convert them to a certain intent. I was actually very skeptical about this particular playbook when I first saw it being run on Nref because it will show certain things that look a little bit skeptical initially, but then I kind of gave into it. I remember talking to Sachin about a month back where he was describing what this engine is, and I was like, okay, it looks like something I should really try out. While he was building out all those automations for him and his team and his customers, I was a little skeptical, but then when I built them out, I realized the kind of value this has. So Yeah, I mean, it puts you in front of the right people at the right time, captures and qualifies every signal of interest, and converts warm engagement into booked meetings. Now, before we get into the playbook, I wanted to show some outcomes that this is just from last week where what Sachin and his team were able to get. I had this LinkedIn post about them getting, I think, 40 plus meetings from just, I think, a handful of posts, not more than that. But if you look at the engagement in some of these, there are like 354 comments here, 890 comments, 1724 comments, and I'm probably missing out on the larger or the more engaged ones, which Sachin will show you. I remember one he showed me, which was close to 3,000 comments. This is all people asking Sachin to share something that they're interested in, which is also something that Sachin deeply believes in, right? So it's kind of them coming forward to you to talk about or show interest on something that your business is aligned with or your offering is aligned with. Sachin, at this point, I'll kind of bring you in to kind of show this in more detail. I'm sure you'll be able to paint a much better picture than what I just did and showcase your LinkedIn or your activities around this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, disclaimer, this is not like a cheap lead magnet on Claude that everyone has been sharing. This is more like if suppose people don't find value in this, you're in deep pain because they can actually take your first post viral, but second post also, with the third post, they know what you're trying to do, right? So we need to be very careful on giving the value to people. At the end of the day, that's the entire core here. You can call it inbound led, outbound, you can call it anything in terms of engineering, but at the end of the day, the outcome should be giving value, right? Me and my team, we started this kind of started with one of the posts that I put in. Wait, let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yep, Sachin.
Yeah, so this was a post. I mean, I just posted. I mean, we have been speaking about 5,000 impressions and all. We get like 200K, 300K impressions on any of the posts there. I just posted this. This was more like my internal notes and all. We kind of do a lot of product marketing. We kind of do a lot of GTM engineering, and this was more like the notes that every PMM or anyone was looking at. So when we started giving some value, that's when we started replicating this entire thing for my entire team. But what we need to understand here is the potential of anything in terms of sharing is also unlimited, right? Like you need to have your own value, you need to have your own use case, and then try to map it out. Random sharing of anything on Cloud. See, right now, I can actually give post ideas to each one of you in terms of Claude that you guys can post it out and become like famous tomorrow. But what's going to happen day after tomorrow? What's going to happen after that? So we need to constantly start engaging and giving the entire value to people in terms of that. So in this inbound led outbound, what we started doing it also started with a problem, right? Now I had these many people I had to reach out to and share the link and all the structure. That time we were not aware that we could actually make it like entirely edit the post and make it live, and then it goes as a comments to all the people. So what we started doing is just manually reaching out to people here, scraping most of the data and then also reaching out to people. That's when we kind of started creating some of the workflows where now this is something that I use it with my co-founder. We kind of write a lot of posts like in build in public, market education and all that. We start tracking impressions and all with most of the lead capture tools. We do the enrichment with Clay and then we try to reach out to people. Now imagine doing this with like 30 tools. We also do this for many of our clients, like these are the Australian guys, we cannot do it. But this was also not repeatable. We kind of started with the manual way of doing things. We started having the tools in place. But imagine we are like 12 people and we have all these 12 to 13 different tools. That's when we started understanding and identifying the problem that can we actually um, majorly pick up each of these workflows, break it down into sub workflows, and start automating it. It can be Cloud Code, it can be anything. That's when we started taking up nRev as a tool. Started automating LinkedIn as an engagement, started automating some of the things that we could actually reach out to people. So imagine all these second step of the tools getting replaced by one tool. That was a major advantage. That's the entire new way of doing things, right? Now, if you're like an expert, you can do it in N8N, but you'll have all the compliances coming to you back and you'll be like shitting around with that. We kind of work with a lot of cyber clients and all. So all these things comes back to us. We cannot start using open source just like that. So we and also to be cautious in the direction that LinkedIn also doesn't like super automated things, right? You cannot command, you should not do a lot of automation. So you have to stay in LinkedIn's thing. You have to do outbound first. You have to know what you're posting. And then we have to start putting out the outbound story slowly, right? So yeah, just wanted to show that structure in terms of how we do it and how we have made this as a repeatable playbook. And yeah, happy to take in like deep dive as we go towards Santo explaining more on the problems and the plays.
Perfect. Thanks, Sachin. So, guys, we'll kind of break this down into a few different things that will kind of help us understand this playbook. I'll not talk much about the workflows being built on NREV. Of course, I'll show you just a small demo of it, but there are typically three pillars to this entire system. And while we might think that the content engine where we create the post or kind of give out that handy material, which becomes a cheat sheet for a certain use case, might be the most difficult part, I often feel that the most overlooked and difficult parts are the other two pillars. So the first most important thing is strategic engagement. LinkedIn today really looks at conversations happening on that platform. Now, unless you are there in those conversations, you often don't appear. I mean, your content does not appear in those people's feeds as well, right? So it's very important today to be a part of conversations, and being a part of conversations. What I mean by that is being in the comments sections and threads of people whom are ideally, influencers in a space that you want to be a part of, or kind of your prospect space where there are genuine challenges and use cases being discussed. And being a part of it, part of those conversations really amplify your reach. Then we'll come to the signal capture and qualification. So once you've kind of increased your reach and then you're posting, then the most important thing is to be able to capture every single signal. We'll talk about some of the signals, but this includes like anyone who's viewing your profile, to anyone who's sending you a connection request, anyone who starts following you at that point in time, all these things. And then finally, of course, like writing the post and making sure that we are creating some valuable content that people will definitely kind of feel that I would like to kind of implement this approach or whatever you're sharing. As Sachin mentioned, that you can probably go out with some not so valuable content in the beginning, but that will just kind of spiral into a very deathly loop, as I would say, because I mean, that's not going to get you virality. So you really need to think deep in terms of what kind of, let's say, expertise you have, and then thus kind of add value to the community that you're looking to build. Right. So this part is a little bit of a manual plus a few workflows, just one workflow actually. But we talk about the other workflows first, right? So now workflows have really helped us automate a lot of these things, which are actually breadcrumbs across the web. For example, at the time of posting, the one, like maybe 1 or 30 minutes before your post and 30 minutes after your post, is typically the golden window in which you need to be extremely active on LinkedIn. So what that does is that if you are commenting on people who have just posted within that window, you're typically engaging with people who are still active on LinkedIn, right? And then if you post, then you're just bringing those active people who are already there on LinkedIn back to your post. And LinkedIn loves this form of engagement where active people are actually can be sent notifications where they're where you're bringing them back to your content. And yeah, that's the 1 hour golden window for you to kind of be very active on LinkedIn. The second is the competitor monitoring. Now this I personally really love because it's given us for one a lot of results. No matter what happens, if anyone's mentioning a competitor, and by competitor I don't mean necessarily like ones you go head on with, but anyone in your space. So if there's any relevant problem about a competitor, that's the gold mine, right? If someone's complaining, if someone's giving out some kind of a request about something that cannot be done on a competitor, that makes it a huge place for you to be in. Even if it is not regarding, let's say, a negative connotation about your competitor, even if there's some discussion about use cases, not just does it become like a repository of feedback loops for you, but it's also important to be a part of those discussions because they are the people who are facing that problem. They might be using a competitor and might be a long cycle to replace them. But once you're there, you're literally, and you're not even probably mentioning the name of your tool. You're not actively selling there, but just being there makes you a part of that topical interest. It's anyone who sees you multiple times in those conversations will definitely be gravitating towards your content after. I think Sachin also mentioned once to me that if you are able to capture your competitor's audience, for example, if there's n number of people even commenting or having a discussion in one of your competitors' very interesting posts, that becomes another very important audience harvesting, if we can call that so. So that's another part of it. But as part of this workflow, being a part of these discussions, again, bring them back to our content. Then there is topical and use case tracking. Of course, like you would want to track every single post about topics, about use cases that kind of are relevant to you. And if you have like a series of people who are your top 100 prospects that you definitely want to close in the next 2 quarters, or let's say if you have a list of influencers whose content you really resonate with and want to borrow their audience at some point in time, you would want to keep an eye out on all these people. Now, these are typically very difficult to follow in the sense that, let's say, a 1 hour window, how do you know the exact posts that you need to be present on? And that's where those workflows really come in, right? You have those tiny triggers for those workflows, which exactly surface out certain posts that you need to be a part of. So now this, of course, can be done manually by clicking on the notifications button, but I'll kind of touch upon how you can do this otherwise as well. I'll not talk about a workflow, but I'll show you some simpler hacky methods here. So this is something that you can set up in a hacky method or in a workflow. And I'll just deep dive on a little bit of the competitors one, because this is something that we've seen the most people on the platform running on LinkedIn automation side. So typically you're like surfacing posts tagged by tagging your competitors or someone from that competitor also talking about certain topics, right? And let's say remove personal achievements, promotional generic mentions. If I kind of not want to be present in anything that is personal, then I can go into the type of post that I typically want to be a part of. Now, I would never recommend auto commenting. This kind of gets into a whole, a whole, vicious cycle of you being seen as someone who's uses AI written language and stuff like that. But if the volumes are extremely high and you're writing just content to be present there, not really adding value to that discussion, you could try auto commenting. There are workflows that allow you to directly auto comment. But this is the main part. There are high value posts where thoughtful use cases or real life problems are being discussed. You definitely need to be here. At this point, actually, without showing you NREV, let me show you that of how you kind of surface up, posts that are, let's say, relevant to you at any point in time. So let me go to a new window. That's how NREV look, but let me kind of skip to that. And let's just say I want to find out posts about, say, GTM engineering or posts that tag Clay being a competitor. So I just go here, a site linkedin.com/posts. And then if you go and just type clay.com in inverted commas, you get all the posts about Clay that has been tagged in Clay. Some of these, no, the biggest problem you'll see here is that some of these are like a year ago. What am I going to do with this? Right? There's just a small addition I have to make to this. Let's say after that, you just need to type the date after which you want to see all the posts. So it goes to, let's say, if I want to see anything after Feb 1st, now everything will not be like more than 1 month old. So if I go into any of these, this will definitely be less than that. So 3 weeks. So if you want me to paste this in the comment section, I'll do so. Let me just copy this out. But you can use this for anything. So for example, if I do n10.io, which is another tool that we typically track because a lot of people. So now you just have all the posts by N10, and you can just, instead of even having that later date, you can just have something like just yesterday. So that'll give me just posts from yesterday. What I typically do is after that, I have each of these posts analyzed by AI and tell me what these posts are about, and then kind of only prioritize those posts that I need to be a part of. That's where you will be needing a workflow. Right. I'll take a quick pause at this step to kind of get some feedback or get some, if there are any questions, happy to answer them. Open the chat as well. But if the comment is adding value and driving replies, isn't that good? Of course, yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, this is Rahi, right? But it's a very important thing to kind of make sure that you're having conversations in the comments. You would want to instigate more conversations if you have genuine questions. That makes a lot of sense to put in those genuine questions. I was just saying you have to be really be present in the comment section. Yep. Quickly stop sharing my screen to. Okay. Yeah, Matthew, I'll share it here. There you go. By the way, this works for LinkedIn profiles, LinkedIn posts, anything of that sort. Instead of posts, you just replace that by IN, and that becomes your search for all LinkedIn profiles, let's say. This is a very interesting hack, which I found quite some time back, which I honestly all the time use to kind of find LinkedIn posts where I need to be present. Perfect. So I'll just assume that there aren't any deeper dive questions. But Sachin, at this point, I'll just kind of ask you if there's something I'm missing here, if there's something around the engagement strategies that you do more than these four things.
All good. I mean, what I usually tell people is if we have to get active, if you're like running a company or anything there, we have to start taking a look at the competitive play, right? Because that's very important. You can actually pull out the data, reach out to people. That cold outbound thing is not working out in terms of by the time your CEO has posted. I mean, this is what I tell people is by the time your CEO has posted, some kind of company has shown interest, your competitors are tracking everything. By the time you reach out to them, they have already reached out. Someone else has reached out, right? So, in terms of automating the auto comments and all, I do not recommend that, but have a tracker, have a signal monitor, which can actually monitor some of these things. If not on your competitors, if you don't like that play ethically, you can definitely have things on the bigger prospects, your ICPs, your targets. Engage, build the thing. Like at least know when they're posting. At least know when the Netflix CISO is posting or the CIO is posting. If you really want to work with him, you cannot just show up on a conference and say hi to him, right? If you start commenting and all, it's a daily game. It's a game where people are like looking at things, even if it is the big creator, right? Biggest of the bigger creator, if you post every day, they can know. They kind of know who comments. If they are super active and it's not their team managing the LinkedIn profile, it's a human to human connection. That's why the LinkedIn algorithm doesn't show you the company post. It shows you the CEO or the founder's post. So that's the entire algorithm. There are a couple of hacks there in terms of monitoring these. That's why these plays are not like super important in terms of commenting and more than reducing your work, it's more around can you pick up the signals at the right time and message it at the right time. So picking up the signal at the right time and messaging at that exact point is the game right now. And I keep saying this that if your competitor is spending $1,000 and 1,500, so if they are already spending this much, you have to. It's the cloud escalation cost that happened 10 years back. If you are on the best of the best machine with reduced latency on AWS, your as your competitor, you have to step up, right? You cannot be on a cheaper cloud. So the GTM game is like that right now. You have to be on the better system. You have to be on a better GTM system, spending a lot of money to do all these so that your ROI is being defined, right? So that's why these plays are super important. But as I said before, even Santo doesn't know the potential of Enron. It's us who creates this entire thing. He has created the product. AirOps created the product. Clay Clay had created the product. But right now we are seeing lot of adoption for this. There were many plays and use cases that even the tool owners didn't knew. That's when this entire thing becomes something, right? If you're doing something manually, try to understand that, write it down. I kind of love the workflows where people have done it manually, right? If you've done it manually, if your SDR workflow is taking your SDRs like 20 hours a week, that's when you can actually identify. You can come out of that, write it down, and then see how you can automate it. The potential of automation platforms are unlimited, like an NREV, right? Even as I said, even Santo doesn't know the workflow that I can build it up. The AirOps
So
CEO Alex had posted a thing that one of the AEs was able to create a workflow at AirOps that was for the content, and he never imagined that he could be his target audience, right? So it's going to be more around the people who are doing AEO, SEO, and all these structure. So we need to understand that whatever is your problem, write it down and then think in workflows and systems. It's not only LinkedIn, it's not only anything else, wherever your entire team is spending time. So the workflow that Santo showed, like 1, 2, 3, 4, the just use this as a reference and have your own workflow.
yep. Actually, guys, so this is the thing that I was showing you before this, right? You can just go into, for example, I'll talk about how, and Matthew also asked this question, how do we track the comments, likes, reactions, everything. Why miss out on the reactions as well, right? You can build it out in very simple steps. For example, in NREV, it's as simple as just creating a new node. And you can go to LinkedIn scraping and get, like, for example, get comments by a person or get the comment on a given post, and it will give you the entire set of comments that are there. But you don't have to kind of get into that as well. So typically how I create workflows is just kind of come in here and say that I want to create a list of relevant people in the hiring or staffing companies in the US. That's a target for us. And I wanted to create a campaign over it. And look at, like I just said, that I don't even know exactly which person would be responsible for GTM in such companies. Help me find those people and kind of go ahead. It literally kind of goes in, creates a plan, not just creates a plan, but it actually executes the workflows, and it gives me the results right here to see if this is the right set of companies that I'm looking at. Are these the right employee ranges that I'm kind of looking at? It further kind of gets in, kind of does all the research that I was looking at. It creates those parallel branches. Funny part here is it actually even experiments and sees that, okay, I do not get too much data from this particular branch. Let me not look at this. Let me look at some other stuff. Let me look at website scraping. What can I get from here? Right, which will help me personalize in this workflow. So just put in these things that I'm showing you here right into your prompt in NREV. It'll actually help you creating it out. I'll be sharing this in our community for the lack of me being able to share this on email with everyone who's here, because it kind of delists our email. I'll show you how you can join our Slack community, and or Jay, if you could just post the QR code, people can just scan that to get in. But yeah, it's as simple as that, or you can just ping me on LinkedIn. I'll share this presentation and the recording with you, right? With that, now this part I wanted to kind of spend some time on, and if you have any questions again, it's something that Matthew has already asked a question about. So how do you capture these signals? So this is the signal capture bit, which really gives you the power to not miss out on, let's say, manual gaps where you might just miss out on, let's say, even profile views for that matter. Sorry, John, was that a question?
Sorry, I was
Oh,
trying
no
to
problem.
not be on mute. I was trying to be on mute. I'm so sorry.
No problem. No problem, John. Yeah, so you're talking about connection requests, you're talking about profile views at that point in time, you're talking about anyone who's interacting with your profile. And also, if you're sharing a certain amount of, let's say, a certain cheat sheet or a content that would really be valuable to your end user or your audience, just make sure that you also give your cal link, your a little bit about how they can get back to you or have any discussion around that, right? That also helps you kind of get those intent parameters. Or anyone, of course, who downloads, let's say, a Notion page or a Coda page will, of course, be another segment, right? So all those automated then gets into your ICP qualification. We all know that the biggest problem of inbound is the noise that inbound brings, right? If you have like 2,000 people kind of going through the content that you shared, you need to make sure that you have like a proper qualification in place. And once that's done, this is an interesting part as well. You often hit limits on LinkedIn to be able to, be there at the right time in front of them. So at this point, you would also want to leverage email, right? You might want to reply to all the comments that you have, or again, that is completely automated on platforms like NREF. But just by, I mean, you will not be able to DM more than 100 people in a day, right? So the best thing is to kind of figure out their emails and then just send out those automated emails to all those people who have interacted with you. So yeah, that's the pretty much signal capture and qualification step of things. I think I'll come to the content engine as well, because this is a part that, like, I remember when we had this kind of a discussion internally amongst our team, etc. A lot of people had so much questions about this. How do I create real value for my audience, like maybe twice a week? Or so I remember this post by Maha today. She has, of course, a huge following, and she actually, it's not. I mean, she herself said that it's not very difficult to come up with these quality content if you are really like, if you've had enough experience in that field and also know about a certain, certain things that you're as in you're in top of certain things that your audience is always asking for. So there's, I mean, the same amount of LinkedIn, post analysis would give you some ideas. But at this time, again, I'll hand it over to Sachin to talk about it because he himself has done this a lot. So Sachin, with a few examples, if you could talk about this part, like how do you create content? I know you have content pillars as you spoke about it in the infographic that you showed, but anything else that you typically keep as a framework for yourself to build content?
No, I mean, this kind of usually comes with the content pillars only that you kind of define. But yeah, try to understand. First of all, try to research on what industry. Say, suppose it can be in two ways, right? Either we are like trying to generate leads for our company, or we want to grow personally, right? So we have to understand this entire structure. If we have to create like a lot of awareness and adoption for the company, you can actually divide your entire domains. Okay, this is my domain. This is how the thought leadership looks like. But is there something missing in that? If there is something missing in that, that's when you write down, okay, this is the entire workflow that I've been doing, people have been talking about, that's like very crappy on LinkedIn. And then I can have a better way to show it. Now, if you show it in Sheet, if you show it in Figma, if you show it your own thing, people need to find value for it, right? That's the entire structure that I kind of divided out in terms of making this entire bucket. So you can divide, say, suppose just show workflow. So can you, I mean, my screen is visible, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right now we divide the bucket like build in public, market education, proof points, thought leadership. So you can see that everything has been in whatever I've been building with my company. I just want to give it away to people that okay, whatever is the struggles, whatever is the entire wins that we have, we cannot build in public. That's been working out. The market education and other structure. And you can have some different buckets, but at least the structure in this will kind of help you out in terms of putting out some content. Okay. If it is built in public, it kind of my entire company is learning how my team is posting, how I'm building this. Struggles if I'm not able to hire people. Then market education, if suppose I am learning something with some of the cyber clients, some of the dev tools clients, some of the other clients where we are trying to solve some real GTM engineering thing, we can actually start talking about it. Because it's not only what's the difference between lead generation versus GTM engineering? What's the difference between GTM engineering versus context engineering versus now you can call it demand engineering, right? So you can try educating the people in terms of infographics or anything like that, and then also have proof points so that people start believing in you, and then you can have the thought leadership, right? That's when you can have this entire enablement. And the most important thing would be to start posting, because that's when you'll get in this habit of posting. All these buckets and all will not matter later, because once you start getting into the habit of consistently posting, you'll start reviewing others post, what's working, what's not working, and you can start manually doing this, right? So this is just to have the consistency in this. And then the other hack is with the automations, like say suppose Andrea, you can have a workflow that okay, who in my industry, like the Google search thing that he showed, in this thing you can actually automate that okay, who in the industry is talking about XYZ things about my competitors about this, and then it can go and scrape Reddit, it can go and scrape Google, and it can give you like a lot of ideas that okay, this is hot in the industry right now, this is where we should be talking about. And once you have topics in front of you, you can actually start talking through it. So this is where your entire workflow automation can also come. But right now, first start writing it down manually, and then have workflows around this to keep you updated with the news and all, so that we can start posting.
Yep. Thanks for that, Sachin. So we're up on time. And this is pretty much, I didn't have much, too much else to show. But if there are any questions, we can hang out for the next 5 or 10 minutes. I know, Sachin, you have a hard stop after 10 minutes. If anyone has any questions or any, particular, you want to get into the deep dive or details of any of these workflows, happy to kind of talk about this. Thanks, John, for joining. We'll come up, we'll share the recording and the materials of this webinar with you. Awesome. I think that's pretty much it then. Matthew, I hope I answered your question and would be happy to show you in case you're getting stuck anywhere and if you want to kind of instrumentalize this. But yeah, uh, we'll connect and probably share some timing that might work for all of us. Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining in. This was a lovely webinar and it was great having you all here. All right. Bye everyone.
Thank you.